The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus said to his disciples, "Stay awake, for you do not know on which day your Lord will come. Be sure of this, if the master of the house had known the hour of the night when the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and not let his house be broken into. So too you must be prepared, for at an hour you do not expect, the Son of Man will come. Who then is the faithful and prudent servant, whom the master has put in charge of his household, to distribute to them their food at the proper time? Blessed is that servant whom his master on his arrival finds him doing so. Amen, I say to you, he will put him in charge of all of his property. But if that wicked servant says to himself, 'My master is long delayed,' and begins to beat his fellow servants, and eat and drink with drunkards, the servant's master will come on an unexpected day and at an unknown hour, and will punish him severely, and assign him a place with the hypocrites, where there will be wailing and grinding of teeth." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Today is one of the great feasts of the Church, the Feast of St. Monica. Monica, as you know, is the mother of Augustine. And tomorrow is the feast of St. Augustine. So I don't want to say too much about Augustine today, because then I'd have nothing to say tomorrow. So I'll talk about his mother, whose feast is today, and perhaps is the reason, I know is the reason, why he is a saint, and we celebrate him tomorrow. Actually, Mother's Day should be moved from May to today, because St. Monica was one of those mothers who never gave up, always supported her children, her husband, despite their many, many deficiencies. You see, Monica was born in the year 331, very early in the church, in the 300s, in North Africa. And she gave birth to 3 sons after marrying Peter, her husband. And Peter was a pagan, and Monica was a Christian. And her husband was unfaithful and had no regard for the faith. And she prayed for his conversion. And she prayed for her son's conversion. Augustine was the oldest of the 3. And he lived a wild life, probably took after his father. And during his teenage years and his young adulthood, he probably did things that would shame any parent. He even conceived and had a son whose mother he did not marry. And so Monica, as you can imagine, had a broken heart, or at least an aching heart, because her husband was the way he was, and her children were following the husband. But she never gave up praying for their conversion. And 15 years later, Augustine seemed to find his way, and he was a very bright young man, loved to learn, and at the university he ran into a priest by the name of Ambrose. And Ambrose took a liking to Augustine, and Augustine had great respect and regard for Ambrose. And so he began to study theology, and he began to experience a real change in his life. His mother continued to pray. Her husband converted to Christianity and mended his ways. And very soon after Augustine and Ambrose met, Augustine was baptized by St. Ambrose. And the mother, Monica, never had given up prayer and persistence in prayer for her son, and she lived to see his conversion. And she died a year later. His son also died. And as we'll hear tomorrow, Augustine wrote a wonderful book. It's a very readable book, and it's his own writing. It's called The Confessions of St. Augustine. And if you're looking for a good spiritual book to read, I recommend that one, The Confessions of St. Augustine. And so tomorrow, we will hear more about his life, and after his conversion, what became of him. Well, we know he's a saint, but in the interim, how did that happen? And so today, I think the both readings talk to us about making God a very permanent and central part of our life. That whatever we do, whatever we become, it's a result of God's will and God's grace, but also the openness of the person who receives the grace in order to follow God's will. And that's what Monica prayed for, to have her son's heart opened to the graces that God bestowed upon him and other members of her family. And she was able to see the day when he became a child of God at his baptism. And so today we salute all mothers, those who are especially persistent in their own faith, and perhaps even concerned about their adult children or grandchildren who may have left the faith. Never give up. And Monica is a sign for us, a reminder that our prayer never goes unheard, and to be persistent in prayer, and to pray for those who have fallen away from the church, especially members of our families. And like Monica, we too pray that we hope to see the day of that conversion. And so let us continue to remember those intentions in our prayers and those who are so very concerned about the welfare and the spiritual growth of their own children. And like Monica, let us never give up praying. And may the Lord grant you his peace. Amen. Amen.